So, hello everybody, and
Hello.
welcome to another Photo Lounge image review session for the 3rd of May, 2025. And as always, we have our panel of experts and know it alls. We have Mr. Chuck, and we got David Stewart somewhere out there in the universe, and we've got Roy
Yeah.
Bixby, Gustavo, and Randall. And we welcome you all. And as always, we thank you for your participation with the images. We have 78 images, 78 submissions, and we will, I'm sure, have a slide or two that will pop up to kind of refresh everybody's mind about when that will be. The next one is on June 7th, same time, same channel. And I want to just personally thank everyone on the panel for their continued support, and a special thank you to Gustavo and Luis on the last show for their efforts. I know Luis has more Thailand images that he's going through from his trip, and hopefully we'll get to see more of those great images that he shared with us on the last show. And I also apologize for some technical difficulties that we had early on in the last show. And thankfully, it doesn't appear that we have any technical difficulties tonight. So everything should go um, much better. Um, we got, let's see, we've got 14 people in here right now. So we'll say hi to those that we have here so far. Um, we have Bob Our Photos is here. Jeff and Leslie, good to see you. Jeff, just so you know, I did sneak in that one picture that you took and sent me and put it in the photo review because I think it's a special picture. Um, and we've got Robert Rosado from Connecticut, where I used to work. We've got Jim, aka Real Nikon Lover, and so we're awaiting, hopefully, for some more people before we get going. Um,
Bob, he's in
Bob,
there.
Yeah, he's here.
yeah, my Bob, I am going to show an image before we get into the technically into the photo review part. I'm just going to show a single image that Bob was nice enough to send me. He just acquired the Z5 II, and he's only gotten out with it a couple times, and um, maybe I can coerce him privately to put something together for a future show. Uh,
Exactly.
I'll have to arm wrestle him and see, but I think I'll win. We'll see what happens there, and I'll share one image that he sent me with the camera from a sunrise shot on the North Myrtle Beach area, and then we'll get into the photo review, and then we do have our normal um, topics of different rumors and things like that we can discuss, but nothing that's overly uh, mind blowing at this point in time. Obviously, a lot of the manufacturers are having their sales, but again, it seems like every month now everybody's having a sale. It's either going to be a Mother's Day sale, a spring sale, it's not raining sale, whatever. And but it apparently the savings are not as exuberant as they were in the past, and their choices of what you're saving money on, it seems to have been adjusted to be not quite as large of a selection as it has been. Um, and I'll leave it at that. And like I said, I want to wait till we have over 20 people. So maybe what I'll do is I'll just put Bob's photo up for a second here because we're
And by the way, Bob, like your little avatar, the logo for with the
Photos.
gray
Yeah.
hair. Nice, Bob.
let me oops, gotta find my way here, and I got some weird thing that came up on Restream here.
Okay.
It's always something. Thank goodness. So this is
We can see it.
Bob's first image with the Z5 II. So that's at Huntington Beach State Park at the northern beach area. So
Looks nice.
so it came out decent.
Yeah.
What did he use? What lens?
I'm assuming he probably used the 24 to 120.
Okay.
I mean, that's typically when we're not doing wildlife. That's kind of our go-to lens for general purpose shooting. So I'm 99% sure that's what he used. But it came out very good. Colors are good. So he did get to use it. Like I said, doing some close-up photography of flowers and stuff, and I think he had, got some results that he likes, and hopefully we'll get some images from that shoot for the next show. But it's nice to see, and Randall has a Z5 II as well, so it's nice to see that there are some folks here in the community that have acquired that camera and getting some use out of it. That's always a good thing. So we're up to 20 people right now. So I think we might as well dive right in because we have quite a few images to go over, and I don't want to rush through them too fast and let everybody get some enjoyment about what regarding what everybody else has shot. So let me bring up the screen to share these images. Give me a second. So far, other than a weird notification from Chrome, I got that nobody else probably saw. Everything going okay tonight so far.
All right.
All righty. So I will let me maximize that, and I'll bring up I got to bring up my cheat sheet so I know who sent in what. And so these first images are from Bob. Bob always tries to be the first one on the block, sending in the images. So he says that all the images that you're going to see here in the group that he sent in were taken with his late dad's 1958 Yashica D 120 film camera. And he used a Kodak Max 400 ISO film, and most of the settings were 1/125th of a second at f8 or f11. And this is just a sunburst shot at the jetty at Huntington Beach State Park. So this is like walking on the north portion of the beach area at that park, and the jetty is about roughly about 1.6 or 1.7 miles from where you enter the beach from the parking lot. So we've been using. I finally got an electric bike not too long ago, so now we can both get out to the jetty pretty quick and get pictures. And then this is the same area where we find minks. And
Did you guys ride the bike in that jetty or not?
No, we don't go over the rocks with the bike. We park it on a beach, and then they have some signs, for like not going into the dunes and disturbing bird nests or whatever. So we just chain our bikes around that sign, and then we probably only have to walk like 20 yards to climb up a section of these rocks or in between the rocks and get on the tarred area.
Okay.
And, so like you're seeing the view going out to the ocean, and if you did a 180 and you were facing the other way, you would see eventually the beach, another beach area, and some small pockets of water on one side of the jetty where sometimes the birds like to hang out in there. But we were lucky the last few times where we were able to at least get a few shots of the minks. But it's just because you see them doesn't mean you can get them, because they basically are climbing over those boulders and they're kind of like diving in and out, and they actually have tunnels, so they can be on what you see now as the right-hand side. They could be walking on those rocks on the right-hand side, and all of a sudden they disappear, and guess what? They pop out on the other side.
Oh, wow.
So they have little crevices, and they know how to avoid you, and they move fast. So if you got a long lens, which we usually have a relatively long lens, you're backing up like almost running sometimes because they're coming at you and they're getting too close. So it becomes a little bit of a little bit humorous at that point, whether you're going to get the shot or not. But anyway, we'll move on to his next image here.
But Bob, it has a good nostalgic feeling. The camera, right? Give you kind of
Yeah, it's the old TLR, like a
No.
Raleigh Flex, and
Yeah.
he gets good results with it. And this was
I like
in
that one.
Georgetown, and this was like on there near the docks. And there's a shopping district and restaurants and whatnot that people go to, and then you can walk behind some of the buildings, and you're basically got water, the water on one side, and you got the backs of the buildings on the other side, and you can get a lot of pictures of some old buildings and real old worn out stores that some are closed, have been closed for years, some are still open, but you can get some interesting shots. So the subsequent shots here were from Georgetown. And so the shots I took shots in, obviously I was with him, but I took shots with my Nikon SP, but I haven't developed the film yet, so I don't have anything to share. But
They look good. They look good. I like them. I mean, they have kind of that vintage camera look, correct? And the format, and this is the format as it's taken by the camera, correct? No crop.
Yeah, it's a 6x6.
Okay, it's a square format.
Square format, yeah.
Beautiful.
And then he got this old boat, that we were along this railing, and there were some boats, few boats in the water, and a handful of them tied up. And then you had the kind of like I don't know if you want to call it it seems like every main part of a town or township or what have you always has to have a big clock. I think no matter where you go in the United States, you're going to find a big clock near government buildings or whatever.
Wow. Watches were expensive, correct? Not everybody carry a watch,
right?
But Jeff, but you see these pictures from Bob, for me, had kind of nice. Doesn't have that grainy look. Remember the one that you took were very grainy. These look nice, correct?
Yeah. And then this was they have a maritime museum, and they had this old boat prop leaning against the side of the building. Nice. And then we did, we drove around different areas and found some, him and I share an interest in, in a lot of stuff in terms of like finding old buildings and things that are kind of falling apart or under disrepair or been sitting there for decades and nobody's lived in them and that type of thing. So that's what these next couple shots are representing, areas within the not too far from the main drag that obviously have definitely serious states of disrepair, and I'm not, and this is something I've seen, up north in parts of Connecticut, and it's not any different down south, and maybe a little bit more prevalent down south just because of the difference in the economy, but in terms of what people earn or whatever down here versus up north. And there's a lot of abandoned buildings. There's a good amount in Connecticut, but there's definitely a lot more down south. So you can always find buildings that have been abandoned for 50, 60 years, and there's no effort to knock them down or whatever and rebuild on them. They just kind of sit there forever, it seems like. But those are the images from Bob, and thank you for sending those in, and thank you for sending in a image of the your first foray with the Z5 II. Now, some of the upcoming images the next ones are gonna be from Woody, and then we're gonna see some images from Terry. So let me bring up Woody. Woody, has gotten some eagle shots.
Oh, wow.
And so this is the first of 2 eagle shots that you're going to see. This is from the eagle release at the Rappahannock River in Lancaster, Virginia. Both the shot and the next one were shot with the D500 and the Tamron G2 70-200 at 160 millimeters, wow. f3.2, 1/2000th of a second, plus 0.3 exposure compensation. He says it was a very cold March 2025 day with rain, snow, and a lot of wind.
But they produce a nice high key image, right? And I love the details in the wings.
Yeah,
very good, Woody.
So this next photo is another eagle shot, probably the same eagle, I'm assuming, with same weather conditions, same settings as the previous shot.
Yeah.
Wow.
I like the other one better, but wing preference, I tend to like the other wing position better than the upwing rather than wing. Oh, nice.
Yep. Now his next shot.
So Woody, what we showing your next shot? Can you tell us if you process it purposely, kind of high key, or it's just because of the weather conditions?
Yeah, I'm guessing if he's saying it was kind of snowy, it probably was pretty clear sky,
Yeah.
pretty bright. But we'll see if he chimes in. I'm not sure if he's in here or not yet.
He is.
Okay. The third shot he sent in was from. He says this is the real home of John Boy Walton in Schuyler, Virginia. So this was with the D7100, 17 millimeters, f10, 1/2500th of a second with a Nikon 17-55 DX kit lens. And he says in his commentary, he says, if you ever watch the Waltons on TV, it seemed they had a long walk to the school, store, and the church. He says, in real life, the school is across the street to the right of this house.
Oh.
And Ike Godsey's store is over the hill on the road just past this house. And he said that he had Ike Godsey's store as a customer of his for years and had to deal with the tour buses coming to check out Walton's Mountain. But this is all stuff from the show, So that's Woody's last image that he sent in. So Woody, thanks so much for sending these in.
Yes.
For us to enjoy. And then the upcoming images here are a series of images from Terry. And he says this month's contribution is Big Birds Australia. And all the images you're going to see were shot with the Z9 and the 180-600 f6.3 on a monopod with a mono gimbal the same afternoon in Healesville, northeast of Melbourne. So he says he's going to start here. The first picture is of a flightless bird in Australia, the emu.
Yeah.
And in portrait shot in the late afternoon at 600 millimeters, f6.3, 1/200th of a second, and ISO 8000.
Nice.
And he says nothing too close. Nothing was too close to the bird, so obviously he ended up with a nice smooth background. Nothing to distract you from the primary subject. Now the second shot here, and he sent in images of this particular bird before, and which I think is kind of definitely distinctive looking, totally different than what you have in Florida or in South Carolina. This is the royal spoonbill, and he says it attracted him because it was the first time he saw one on top of a 3+ meter dead tree, and not as usual just around the bank of a river or a lake, because lots of times they're just moving their heads back and forth in the water trying to get small fish or shrimp or what have you. So that's good.
Nice.
And then he says further down the small wetland, he says a black-necked stork. And he says he doesn't know why they call it a black-necked stork, because he says basically it's clearly blue, it's not black, but they call it a black-necked stork. And he says it was stretching, giving him an interesting pose, and this was shot at 460 millimeters f6, 1/640th of a second, ISO 1000. But yeah, I like the pose. You don't really know what it's thinking.
Nice.
Is it preparing for takeoff? Does it think it's seeing some food that it might want to go after? Who knows, right? Now the next image he says is almost under the royal spoonbill's dead tree was a pied heron that was looking at him.
Oh, beautiful.
Asking what he was doing there. And this is 600 millimeters, f6.3, 1/640th of a second, ISO 1000. So yeah, it's nice when they give you the look. They have an interest in you when they notice you're there. They usually eventually stare right at you. Try to do a stare down. I think they think they're going to scare us away by looking at us. It doesn't work for me, no. They don't scare most of us away. And his last image he sent in, he says this is with two of the smallest birds in Australia. Favorite one of his is the couple of fairy wrens. He says just because he was looking the cropping of a medium format Fujifilm GFX 102 as a Hasselblad 2. He used the 65x24 format, and he liked to try it in this photo for some reason, and it works.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see some photos that John Ishii sent me, a few images with the new Fujifilm camera that we talked about on a previous show. He sent me some 65x24, I believe, format images that you're going to see later on. This one was at 600 millimeters, f6.3, 1/2500th of a second, and ISO 8000. But it just, it's amazing how well you can clean up a relatively high ISO image nowadays. You can't, nothing wrong at all with it.
It looks very good, Terry. All the photos, lovely.
Yeah. Well done, Terry. Thanks a lot as always, for sending in some stuff. We appreciate it very much. The next group of images, we got some images from Martin, and then we're going to have Randall will be after that, and Randall could talk to the images that he sent in. So we will give me a second here to get my information. And Martin is always gives me a lot of detail on his adventure, which I like. So he says he decided to show us around his hometown for the next few reviews that we're going to have. Obviously this one and the next one. He says, not that I don't have a lot of other pictures to show, but he says maybe this new approach can be interesting. So he says this picture shows the cherry blossoms in a nearby street. There are lots and lots of these streets. Wiesbaden is not particularly old, but it has lots of houses from the end of the 19th century. He says it feels pretty, I'm not going to pronounce this word properly, so I'm not going to try it. I think it just means basically pretty plain, but he says, which you may like or dislike. Anyway, he says, I just love the cherry blossom. So I bought this picture took this picture from his lunch break stroll. This was with the Z6 II, the Nikkor 24-70 f4 S lens, ISO 450, 1/500th of a second. At f6.3 at 24 millimeters. Slight crop, he says. He says, it may not be the most impressive shot, but he says he has to start somewhere. Yes, we all have to start somewhere. Now his next picture shows a blue throat on a rundown sign reading nature reserve. So that German wording there means nature reserve. He says he loves these birds and they're insanely popular with birders there. He says, I could have cropped it, but he says he liked how it sits on the sign. And this was with the Z9 with the 800 millimeter PF lens, ISO 320, f6.3, cropped it a bit. And at 1/1250th of a second. Yeah, it's nice with that nice blue throat and chest area.
Yeah, that I tried to see that bird when I lived in the UK. I couldn't find it, so it's certainly beautiful.
Yeah, it's almost like you got underneath the neck, and then it kind of looks like a bib,
Yeah.
like it's wearing a bib. And
Beautiful.
so then he sent us another image tied in with what we saw last month was the owls. He had those owl shots, so he sent in another owl shot. But he said he visited the owls after a hefty rainfall, and they sat pretty low and close up on a tree. So he wanted to get a picture of the owl after it got doused in some rainfall here. And he says it's a horizontal crop from a vertical picture. But he says the poor owl got really wet and doesn't seem to be happy to be photographed that way. What I think is interesting is the purplish color around the, I guess you'd call it an eyelid or whatever, around the eye. It's kind of like a purple tone to it, brownish purple. I thought that was kind of interesting. But this was with the, like I said, Z9 800 PF f7.1 1/160th of a second at ISO 800. And then his last image that he sent in, and I like this because it's just very simple image.
Minimalistic.
Stands out. Yeah.
So this is one of the first orchid flowers for him this year. And it says this is a green-winged orchid. It grows in large numbers on this particular meadow. It is the orchid with the steepest decline in numbers in Germany, though, mainly due to over-fertilization of meadows, not enough rainfall, and loss of habitats. He says in the last 70 years, it is said to have lost about 90% of its specimens. So it makes him really happy to still be able to visit this particular place with over 1,000 flowers. He says, funny enough, the meadow is pretty close to the post-industrial city of Offenbach, which is said to be one of the ugliest cities in Germany. He says, I have to say that this can't be true if it has such places like this. People are blind. He says, also, when I took this picture and checked it on the display, he couldn't wait to see it on his computer monitor. He says, I was so happy to see this result. The evening light when the sun broke through the clouds at the last moment, and generally the conditions there were stunning. Imagine the low sun and a concert of bird songs, blackbirds, nightingales, robins. Needless to say, he came home in really high spirits. Z6-2 with the Nikkor 105, f3.2, 1/200th of a second at ISO 180. So
Beautiful.
thank you very much, Martin, for sending those images in.
And the narrative, because that adds a lot, correct?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does, because you get a sense of place that way, and how it, in this particular shot in particular, how it really struck a chord with him, and meant a lot to him to get this shot.
Exactly.
And
Yeah, this is one of those instances where a minimalist approach works well.
right, yeah,
Yeah, but Jeff, indeed, I mean, we take photos because there is a emotional connection to our subjects, correct?
yeah,
And definitely Martin has it, and if you don't have that connection, all the results look rather mechanical. So that's why you need to photograph what you like, what you appreciate. Thank you, Martin.
yep, yep.
Excellent.
Now, Randall, you're up to bat next, man. So clear your
Okay.
throat, and get ready.
I'm ready.
So here we go.
Yeah, I'm clearing my throat right now.
Okay.
I call this picture the big mouth. So these little sparrows all around my house, I put water out for the bird bath, and they just hang around, and they're very noisy. They're always squeaking and stuff. They want me to put out bird feed, but then they'll bring the squirrels, and I don't want to deal with squirrels. One is enough, and he drives me crazy. I can't even put cushions out because he'll tear a hole in the cushion and make a nest or whatever, take the stuffing out of the cushion. So anyway, I believe this is a female. Okay. I will show you a male in the next picture, but this one male is around, but then I see these two females. So I don't know if they have more than one female, but there's two females that are
I'll
ready
skip
to
your
pop.
your next shot here,
Okay.
since you mentioned the male. So we'll
Yeah.
put
So
this one up.
here he is. He's the one that always hangs around. He's always making a lot of noise and stuff. So they're on top of the roof, or they're in the tree in the crepe myrtle, and they're nonstop. They just chatter away, and they really chatter when I get out and put some water in the bird bath. So, but by the way, these were taken by. Now that's with the Sony A7CR, okay, and that's a crepe myrtle that bloomed very early this spring. In fact, it was one of the first trees that bloomed. Mine hasn't bloomed yet, but they're a lot bigger than this one. And
Yeah,
I love
that's one of people's favorite trees to have, and down here in Myrtle Beach is everybody likes to have a crepe myrtle in their yard if they can. They're really pretty trees.
Yeah, so I used the 85 millimeter f1.8 Sony Prime, and I thought it was just a fantastic looking tree. My trees bloomed early with the leaves, but they haven't gotten the flowers yet. So
Yeah, they're beautiful plants.
they're gorgeous.
You can get them. You can get some of them that are like shrub height, but then most people try to get the tree version of them. And then you got one more here.
And this is what I call too far. I've used all the bird pictures with the Canon RF Mark II and with the 200 to 800. and I just want to make sure it's Mark II. Yeah, R5 Mark II. And it's sharp, it's clear. I've used the Sony. I've used of course, the 180 to 600 for the Nikon, and they're just sharp. I love those lenses. Whatever camera I use, I've had no problems with focusing. I did upgrade my Nikon Z8 to firmware 2.10, and the autofocusing improved quite a bit. And then I also did the firmware 2 for the ZF. And let's see, I was it the Z6 III that also got one just recently. Anyway,
Well, the Z9 got a small
yeah,
small change, but nothing significant.
okay. So I like the higher megapixel cameras because you can crop in, but these aren't cropped. They're right at 800 millimeters. So yeah, the reason why I was saying it's too far, this was before I filled up the water, and it seemed like he wasn't going toward the water. He was just holding on the edge, just trying to reach it, but he couldn't reach it.
He's probably gazing at his reflection and saying, "Boy, that's a pretty bird I see in that water."
That's
But thanks for sending these in.
Yeah.
And trying out all the different combinations of lenses and everything like you do on different cameras. I think
Roy's asking you a question, Randall.
okay.
What do you-
No tripod.
Okay.
I was hand holding it. I couldn't believe it.
Very well
and
done.
the next images we're going to get is we're going to get a set of images from Anita Stewart, and then we have some from Jeff Sluter after that. So we're gonna start with Anita's first shot here, and these are this first shot is there's four photos in pano, 1/4000th of a second at 48 millimeters. This is okay. The metadata says it's a 1/2500th of a second f4.5 ISO 200. 38 millimeters. We're using the Nikon Z24 to 70 f4s.
And you're reading the comment by Jeff and Leslie. Very good. So I presume that's Anita, that's the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, Randall, you're being reminded that you need to. The bird's saying, if I sit here long enough, maybe the human will come and fill the water in the bird bath. So this is her first entry. I got to get my mouse button back here. This next one coming up is at 1/3200th of a second, and we will bring this one up. Well, actually, the words are not matching the metadata, so I'm going to go by what's on the metadata. 1/4000th of a second, f4.5, ISO 200, 48 millimeter, Nikkor Z24 to 70 f4s. Yeah, it's interesting how you get the the tonal changes in the rocks. You got the reddish orange, the reddish tones on one area, predominantly on one area, and then you have the tan and the tan coloration in different parts. It's interesting how that works out. I've never been to any of these. The only time I've seen anything like this was a view from an airplane one time of part of the Grand Canyon flying to Las Vegas, and it's the only time I've seen anything like that.
So I presume, Anita, is this from the southern rim or the northern rim? This looks southern rim to me. Oh, those are beautiful.
So then this is another view. I like this because you got everything. You've got the color changes and you've got some vegetation. And I don't know if that's snow on the ground, maybe in the bottom right hand area looks like snow.
Probably.
1/3200th of a second, f4.5, ISO 200, 35 millimeters with the same Z24 to 70 f4S lens.
And this picture has got people in it, so it gives you an idea of the scale.
Oops, sorry, I moved my mouse. Let me get back to it.
Yeah, upper right hand corner.
Yeah, up
Yep.
at the top, you see a roof line up here with a few people.
Yeah.
And obviously, they look like they're like the size of mice compared to everything around them.
And Jeff, the issue with the Grand Canyon and on all this area is that the photos never make good representation of the vastness of the landscape. And she confirmed that indeed this is a southern rim and it is snow.
Okay. And then got this view.
Beautiful.
What, Anita? What time of the day were you taking these shots, or were they all in the same time frame, or different times of the day? And I'll jump to her next one here. It does make you feel small, even looking at it, though. Like you said, it's nothing like seeing it in person. But even when you're looking at it on a screen, you feel like, yeah, you'd be such an insignificant dot if somebody got a picture of you in this image.
Yeah, beautiful. I love it.
And then let's see. I think she sent me one more image here, and bring this last one up. Yeah, I just find it interesting that you can have so much of it that has that brownish brown and tan coloration in it, and then it just all of a sudden switches over to more of a reddish brown. You're a geologist, Gustavo. Explain why.
Different formations. So all these are different layers.
There's different layers.
Yeah. So probably one of the kind of brownish color at the top is probably some limestone, and the other one's a different level of iron oxide. Beautiful. I'm glad.
Yeah.
I like to see it. So, Anita, did you try some panoramas? Because the Grand Canyon also is spectacular for doing panoramas.
Jim says if you fall off the cliff, you'll have time to think about it on the way down.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think you'll be thinking. You'll just have two words that come out of your mouth if you fall off the edge. At least I'd have two words, and I can't say what they would be. I'll let you use your imagination. So now we got
Geronimo won't be one of them. So.
Yeah, it won't be Geronimo. No. Or you're not going to say, "Oh crap, I left my parachute at home."
Could you mail it to me?
Yeah.
Thank you, Anita. Beautiful photos.
Yeah, they're great shots, Anita.
The next handful of images here are going to be from Jeff and Leslie, and Jeff sent these in, and so he got a series of images here of the Osprey diving. So you'll see four images of the Osprey coming down. He shot this with the Canon R7, the 100 to 500 zoom at 300 millimeters, ISO 1000, using the mechanical shutter at 1/2000th of a second. He was using auto ISO. So he says the ISO may be slightly different from beginning to the end of the sequence, but they're all pretty close to the same. And so we'll go through this series here. And that's where you say, oh, that's got to hurt.
Oh, wow.
And then of course it's working its way up, and I'm sure Jeff's saying, I hope there's a fish at the end, but you can't tell. I can't tell if I don't know that he got one. And then of course, when they go and they fold their wings forward like that, even if they had one, it's a little harder to see, but it definitely, what I like about ospreys versus eagles is eagles make it look too easy. Ospreys always slam the water, and sometimes they go completely underwater. And if they got a real big fish, it may take a while for them to pop back up, and then they're struggling to get it out of the water. And it's much more entertaining to me and exciting to watch an osprey get a fish than an eagle, because the eagle just casually drags its talons across the top of the water, and all of a sudden magically there's a fish in its talons, and it's like it didn't even have to work hard or work a sweat. So really do enjoy myself personally watching ospreys get food versus the eagles typically. Then he has a picture here of a flower. This is I'm gonna pronounce the common name that he gave me, toadshade, trillium. He says this is actually a trio of trilliums. This is also with the R7 with the 1-500, and he says he thought he had his macro lens that day, but he actually shot it with the 1-500 at 176 millimeters, f11 ISO 2500, and did a little bit of denoise with Topaz Photo AI. And Jeff, hopefully you stay around to the end of the show, because I did one of my famous, I got a picture and I go, it's a flower. Even though I have a flower guide, it seems like whenever I look through the flower guide, I don't find the flower that I took a picture of. I find all sorts of other flowers, but not the one that I want. So this is really nice. You got some of the leaves from the winter and the late fall laying there in the foreground, and you got this fresh crop of blue-eyed Mary wildflowers that have come up. And this is with the R7 with the Canon RFS 10 to 18 millimeter at 11 millimeters, 1/80th of a second, ISO 125. She's pretty sure it was the electronic shutter. And I like that. It's always great to get the flowers when they first come up, because they haven't been degraded from insect damage or disease or anything yet.
And those photos are very evocative of spring, correct? When there's still no leaf in the trees, but then you can see the light coming into the forest, and then you have all the spring flower. Beautiful. Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks a lot, Jeff, as always. Appreciate it. And now the next one's coming up. Give me a second here. I think I'm going to sneeze or something. No, didn't do it. The next images coming up are Gustavo's images, so he'll get to talk about these images. And then following Gustavo's images, we've got a handful of images that Luis was nice enough to send us. So they're kind of tag teaming me here, one right after the other. And he must talk on the phone or something. I'm going to send mine to Jeff, and okay, I'll send mine 2 minutes later. Well, here's let Gustavo talk about these images.
Yes. So I think for this May event, I decided to highlight some of the images from the several feral species, which make now their home in Hawaii. So I actually was looking forward to see some of them. And one of the things, I mean, there is a lot of uh, chickens, correct, that have basically returned their plumage to their original plumage. And so this is the has all the plumage of the red jungle fowl. So you look at, if you remember Luis' presentation, you will see that this Hawaiian feral is almost the same colors. Okay? So I also included this one for our friend David, the uh, weather photographer, drone weather photographer. I know he likes chickens, so so these chickens, or these feral chickens, or these feral red jungle fowl, all over. So I was looking for a nice place where I could get and not being in the jar of somebody and take some of the photos. They're all over the place, but certainly I found it beautiful. Right. So the next one after this, Jeff, is actually another feral species. This is actually one that by chance Luis also showed. This is the Calic pheasant. So this is a purposely introduced um, game bird to Hawaii. It's pheasant. It's originally from the foothills of the Himalayas. Right, there are several subspecies, and they are very common again in some areas. So this was taken near the volcano village, close to the volcanoes, Hawaiian Volcanoes Park, National Park. Okay, so
So,
this is very common there. Yes,
question for you. Is it
yes.
normal for the one leg to have like it looks like a spike sticking out of it and it's not on the other one?
No, it's probably in both. It's just that it probably is in the inner part of the leg. You
Oh,
cannot
on the
see it.
other side of the leg. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Remember, these are family from the chickens, so they all have, I don't know, spurs,
Spurs.
correct?
Yeah.
So they
Okay.
use it on defensive. So this is a male, correct? Uh, these birds in this area are highly habituated, so they frequently visit parks and gardens around the national parks or any park. So these I took these outside the village. So in the place we were staying in the morning, I was trying to get a relatively good picture of it. So in the morning, I noticed that there were some clocking outside our little room, and when I went out, there was a a group of these. Right? So anyway, that was one of the things. Now I was particularly, if we go to the next one, I was particularly interested on photographing some of the South American um, uh, species. Now, these ones here are probably the result of the escape from the uh, pet trade. So I really wanted to see the feral species. This is native of South America, actually from northern Argentina, Paraguay, and southwest Brazil. They're they probably escapee, but they have very well established. Okay, so um, it's rather common in some of the islands. Actually, different islands have different. This is a yellow belly cardinal. Um, in Venezuela, we have a species that related to this one, which very choy as well, which called Cardenal Bandera Alemana, which means cardinal German flag, because it had the colors white, black, and red of the all imperial German flag. Okay? So these were taken in outside a roadside smoothie shop that I visit like 3 or 4 times to take some smoothie and also to sit there and try to get some good photos of the cardinals.
I like the color combination on this bird. It's really pretty.
Yeah.
Very pretty. Eyes, of course, everything's tack sharp, as always.
Yeah, but
And then
it takes when you find the species, it takes a couple of trips. This is another one that I really wanted to see of the ferals. It's actually that's actually from my hometown in Venezuela originally. In English, it's called the saffron finch. It's in the northern part of South America. Okay, it's a finch, right? And I knew I could see it in Hawaii. Again, another common species in the lawns, parks, and actually photographed this in the lawn of the hotel, right? Where we were staying in the Hilo area. Okay? So these saffron finches are common, and they are seed eaters. So you can see in some of the photos they are taking some of the seed. Okay? Now, in my home uh, city of Caracas, they used to be called Canario del Tejado, which means Canario the roof tile. We refer to the habit of these birds to nest in the old style colonial houses with roof tiles, which make for a pretty combination of red roof tiles and a bright yellow bird. So I was happy to photograph some of these, and these also helped me to reminder of we. I think in 2 weeks we're going to have our regular general photo launch, and I have a presentation. So you will see some of these, and we will talk a little bit more about the feral species versus the native species in Hawaii. But indeed, I wanted to share some of these. They are pretty, not native, but now they have completely habituated there in Hawaii. So that's what I have.
okay, thanks a lot, my friend. Wonderful shots.
So
Nice
David,
color.
So, David, I put that one for you specifically. I know you are too much into chicken and fowls and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Very good.
Well,
Yeah,
I hope David's not always in a foul mood, if you know what I mean. The next group of images are from we got Luis followed by Robert Rosado. So we're gonna dive right in here to Luis's shots, and the first one is one that I capture quite a bit down here in Myrtle Beach. The hooded merganser. He took this in a park in the Netherlands in 2024. He says it's a North American species. He says allegedly this was a wild bird. He says I don't know for sure, but he was always hiding in the vegetation. And for those who have shot this bird before, if they see people, usually not always, but usually they make haste and they tend to drift farther away from the bank of the pond or the shore or whatever, just to make it more difficult for you to get a good shot of them. So it's nice when you can pull in a nice tight shot on these birds. This was with the he used the Z8 with the 500 PF, 1/500th of a second f/6.3 ISO 250. And he was at the f/5.6 setting on the 500 PF. So that's his first image that he sent in. Then the next image, oops, jumping ahead here, moved the mouse too quick. The next image here is of a group of mallards landing on the lake. This is in early 2024 as well. He said he had a few good shots, but this one had the best poses. Obviously, you got in the air anyway. You got two males and one female. This is with the Z9 with the 500 PF, 1/4000th of a second, 5.6 ISO 800. Then the third image that he sent in is
And those
This-
photos, yeah, are not easy, correct? Because like the prior one, you try, and then there is always one that is out of focus, not nice, correct? So
Yep.
you things have to align properly.
Yeah,
So anyway,
they gotta fall into that
same
like I said, they
flight
gotta
path.
be parallel to your sensor for them to all be sharp, you know,
Exactly, same
especially
flight
when you're
path. But
shooting, especially
but
you're
we know
shooting wide.
Uh, Luis do air traffic control, so he can direct the flight path.
Yeah. He probably has an earpiece in his ear and he gets special instructions, you know.
Exactly.
So this is a composite image of two pictures of a Benelli Eagle landing taken
Beautiful.
from a hide managed by one of his Spanish friends, he said. He says he doesn't remember the series of the lens because he got it. He just had the lens for the day when he went there. But this is a Z8 using an F mount 70 to 200 is what he wrote at 200, 1/1250th of a second, ISO 500, minus 0.3 EV.
Did he mention the species or not?
Yeah, Benelli Eagle,
Okay.
Bonelli.
Yeah. As I was exchanging a couple of emails with David, eagles are difficult sometimes to identify, believe it or not. I mean, but
Yeah.
they beautiful. I love it.
And then now his last image I found interesting because, you know, when you're very young, or when you're my age anyway, and you're very young, you always just associated this next bird that you're going to see with a certain cartoon that you watched on TV during the day. So this is a roadrunner.
Beep, beep.
Yep.
Beep, 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 beep. Wowie Coyote is probably on the other side of the road. This was early morning in Clark County Wetlands Park, which is to the east of Las Vegas. And this was with the Z8 and the 600 PF, f6.3, 1/800th of a second, ISO 125 at minus 0.3 EV. And yeah, I've seen very few Roadrunner, real Roadrunner images. They're definitely, you can see why they probably are pretty fast. I'm assuming that they've earned that reputation.
And they are definitely not. They are quite nasty, correct? They remember the road runners and Randall. You must see a road runner resident
Oh yes, I see them all the time.
because they are in San Antonio area.
Yeah.
There are a lot, but they eat other birds and they eat
Snakes.
snakes and lizards, and
Right.
they are quite but they do run. All right, they
Yes.
fly as well, but they like to run fast.
So that's everything from Luis. So thank you, sir, for sending these in. He always makes time, even though he's on the road a lot, and he's either on the road or he's making sure airplanes land safe. So it's nice that he has time to send something into us at all. So we appreciate that.
Yeah, he was early on in the chat, but I don't see him now.
The next images were from Robert Rosado, and so these are Connecticut, from Connecticut, and this is the Connecticut State Capitol building. So he has a few images that he took. These were from June of 2024. So in this particular image, he was using the ZF and he was trying out a Voigtlander 35 millimeter f1.5 M mount lens, and he says no aperture info available. He says the metadata will say f1.4 instead of 1.5 in the description because at the time Nikon only listed the apertures would only be listed that would fall in with a Nikon lens when you're setting up non-CPU lenses. But now they've obviously fixed that, so you can go in and you can actually latest firmware update for the ZF. You can now go in and select any aperture you want for the non-CPU lenses, so you can make sure that that data is correct for your particular lens. And but at least now you can have complete exposure info in your metadata for the images. And this was, as you said, this was taken with the ZF and the Voigtlander 35 millimeter f1.5, and using the Voigtlander VM-Z adapter, 1/2000th of a second at f14, ISO 100 at 35 millimeters. He says aperture was not wide open because, as we know, on a lot of these types of lenses, if you shoot wide open, many a time you do have vignetting. So if you stop it down 1 or 2 stops, then the vignetting goes away. But some people like the vignetting effect, and obviously, if you're in Lightroom or Photoshop, you can take any image and add vignetting, light color or dark color vignetting to any image that you take. So it's all a personal taste type of thing when it comes to whether you like it or you don't like it, and in what degree you want it to be if you're simulating it. So this is the second shot of that building.
That's really.
Bob, I hate to tell you, though, it doesn't make me miss Connecticut looking at these shots. At least not these 2 shots, anyway. Now, the next shots here are really interesting that he sent in. So this first one, this is taken in Sugar Hill, Sugar Hill, New Hampshire in May of 2021. He said he was planning to shoot the cabin at night with the Milky Way in the background at some point. He was scouting it out to see how the Milky Way would align, but it was threatening to rain, so the clouds were pretty moody. So he decided to take this image with the Nikon D850 with the 24-70 f2.8 lens at 35 millimeter, 1/200th of a second, f5.6 ISO 100. So then he went to a year later, June of 2022. He says he's not too happy with the composition, but he's being overly critical, which we all are of our own work, right? He says there's a large tree stump in the front of the cabin that's a bit distracting from this view. He says in the other photo there was some separation between the two because of shooting it at a different angle. So he says at some point he wants to reshoot this shot, but this is a composite image. So there were 15. This was a lot of work that he did on this. There were 15 images focused on the sky that were stacked in starry landscape stacker to reduce noise. 10-second exposure at f2.8 ISO 6400. Then he took 6 to 8 foreground images for light painting of the cabin. And the foreground image was shot with a 25-second exposure to give him time to walk around and light the area. He had aperture of f8 ISO 400. And he says the foreground images and the sky images were then blended together, and he put in a couple of small LED panels inside the cabin at their lowest setting, which was 5%, and opened up the shutters to make it look like somebody was actually in the cabin. So there was nobody in the cabin, but he made it look like it was occupied. So he took a lot of extraordinary steps and processing and time and thought to create this image. So this is a wonderful, wonderful image.
Beautiful. I agree. And you see, Jeff, just to keep encouraging people here, I mean, we got a lot of talented photographers. We know that, correct? But I certainly would like Robert, who have made presentation before, Terry, again, that do this type of photography, Rakesh, correct, that do this, David, but correct. I mean, I would like to hear more how they do this, correct, and what software do they use to combine them, and because I mean, as was mentioned here by Bob, I mean, the narrative that he gave you, I mean, there is a lot of deliver actions that you need to take to be able to get this photo, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, he had, I mean, perfect example of visualization of what he wanted to achieve. He had the image in his mind of what he wanted to get, and then he did what he had to do to get the end result, and obviously this wasn't something was like, oh, I took I bracketed 3 images and I put them together and this is what I got. This was like a million times harder than that. And he had to put a lot of thought and planning into it. And he had this in his head way before he pushed the shutter. Let's put it that way, what he wanted.
Exactly. And that's what I think we need, those that are taking those pictures to come and give us a show and tell.
Yep.
Yeah, to do this stuff takes a fair bit of organization. You got to come up with an idea, and then you got to figure out how you're going to do it. And like, it could take days to get the right weather and everything else to do this and to get the shots, because he's got his 30 shots that he put together here, and it takes a while to figure that all out, and then because there's always some that you want and some you don't, and the odd time you got to do it 2 or 3 times or so,
Exactly.
Yep.
But it's not easy, and this is a great shot. It's well worth the effort.
Yeah. I just want to say hi in the chat because I'm trying to look at my other computer and I know I'm not acknowledging everybody, and I apologize for that, but I have to look at the main screen. But I want to say hi to Rakesh, and Scuba Razi's now in here. And Rakesh is in here, and Terry's here, and Real Nikon Lover, Space People's here. So it's nice to see more people coming in. So thanks so much for showing up. And if you got here a little bit late, obviously go back and watch part of it tomorrow when you wake up and having your cup of coffee.
And at the end, we always do the quick.
We'll do the quick go through at the end. Yeah, you'll catch up a little bit there. Now, Robert sent in one more image here, and this is a this is what they call the Pinchot sycamore tree in Simsbury, Connecticut, and obviously it appears that is adjacent to a small, I don't know, it looks like, I don't know if those are cemetery stones or just rocks. Like, hard to tell. I'm not sure. Maybe it's just stones, but he says this is the largest tree in the state. Trunk is over 28 feet in circumference, and the canopy diameter is over 120 feet. He says, unfortunately, the sky was very drab gray when he took this, not the best image. Time to reshoot it, he says. Taken with the D850, with the 14, the 28 f2.8 at 14 millimeter, 1/40th of a second f9, ISO 64, and he did use a tripod. So, Robert, some really nice stuff you sent in, and that effort you put into that cabin and putting in the lights on the inside and all that was a brilliant move, and very, you got the result I'm sure that you wanted, and you should be very, very proud to hang that up on your wall. There's no doubt about it. Very nice. Okay, coming up, we obviously saw images from Jeff Sluter earlier, but he sent me a private picture, and I said I have to share this because so I'm sneaking in this one shot he sent me, and then the next images after that are David Stewart, so David could talk about his images. But this next image is when I get on my high horse and I talk about photo history and really how cameras were used, primarily for family functions and get-togethers and your children and stuff like that. And long before, you had a lot of specialized photography per se. And so I always think that when you're getting back to the roots of photography, this image kind of says it all, and represents to me. These are the images that make it on the wall or in the photo album that you look at 20, 30 years down the road, And this
I
is
see a lot of happy people.
this is a picture of Jeff with his grandson Wesley. So I just call this the dynamic duo. So I appreciate, Jeff, you sending this image, and like I said, I think this really kind of brings me back to what I grew up with when it came to images of people that, especially my mom. I mean, 99% of what she took was family photos, and it's kind of nice to kind of go back to the roots, your roots a little bit, So,
And Jeff, I can see the family resemblance there. Although separated by a few years.
a few years, yeah. But they're
Same
both
smile.
they're both very content and happy in that image. That's for sure. But thanks for slipping that one to me, Jeff, and I hope you don't mind me sharing it with everybody. The next images are a series of shots that David Stewart sent in, so I'll let him narrate. So we'll bring that one up now. Clear your throat, David, and have a sip of whiskey before you start. And here we go.
This one is a railway. I guess it's a viaduct. It is in Lethbridge, Alberta. It was built at the turn of the last century, and it's CPKC owns it now, and it's this goes from Lethbridge west through the Rockies. And I shot this in black and white. Have a tendency to shoot more black and white between 10 and 2 in the time wise, because it just seemed to look nicer to me because of the shadows and whatever. And you can see from the XF data, this is a 24 millimeter, 1/25 of a second f/22 ISO 250. And I use my 24 to 120, which I use better than 50% of the time. And my other 20 odd lenses make up the other 50%. But anyway, this
Well,
is
it's interesting that you said that this is an active stretch of track too. That's cool.
yeah.
I mean,
And
there's
yeah.
so many areas in the States where, there's railroad tracks that haven't been used in decades,
Yeah, CPKC has 2 main lines that go through the Rockies in Canada, and this is on one of them.
Oh.
And I'm not too sure how long this is, but for most of those metrically challenged, it's close to a mile.
All I know is it's too high for my taste. It's not flat on the ground. It's too high for me.
Yeah, Jeff, the second picture, you should make it as the last picture.
Oh, okay.
And we can go to the, and
Oh, wow.
every one of those fence posts has a hat on it. And this guy has been collecting hats for a long time. There's another rancher in this area has boots. And I don't know where he got all the boots from. I could see collecting hats, but not boots. But but this is a typical scene on the foothills. And this is the first part of April this year.
So now,
It was, I shot this one with my 100 to 400 on my Z9. This is at 165, and for those that can't read the XF data on the top left, is 1/100th of a second f/16, ISO 125. And my
now the previous image you said show last, so you sent me 4, so I'll show the other one first, I guess.
yeah, it's one of the bird sanctuaries in Calgary. It I was out 2 months ago about, and I was out walking around and seeing what I could see, and I was out practicing, and I saw an eagle come by and he picked up some nesting material, and I went to try to find him, but I couldn't. And then I came back later. This is about 5 weeks ago now, and I spent an hour and a half, and I managed to find him. And this what was taken with a 600 at 840. It's he was about 400 meters away, and but I did find the pair, and then when I went back, it's bring it in the last shot. It's they had built a nest, and this one is sitting on the nest, and this was shot with my 800 PF with a 2 times in the afternoon, and the weather conditions were spot on. It was overcast and it was threatening rain, and I just had my gear put away and into my truck, and a heavy rain started less than 5 minutes later. So the only way you could get this shot is the weather had to be spot on, because
and like you said, you're at 1600 millimeters and ISO 1600, and and you got it. That's all that matters, is you got it.
Yeah, but it's one of these first world problems. Is once you start shooting past about 600 millimeters or 500 millimeters, you start having an awful lot of heat shimmer, and the only way to get around it is you really got to watch your weather conditions, so that the air is a constant temperature all the way from your camera to the subject.
Yeah, but it's nice and sharp,
Yeah.
and the bird is happy.
Yeah, and I think if I went back in another week, there'd be chicks there. Because this was shot on April Fool's Day.
The
Okay,
issue,
so
David,
you're telling me this is an AI generated shot then?
the issue, David, is now that the trees probably have leaves, you may not be able to see as much as you.
Yeah, that's the other problem, Gustavo.
Yeah.
I haven't been there since, so I'm not too sure what it's like,
Exactly.
But we'll see what I can do, because the closest I can get is about 400 meters, and I'm shooting across the river to get to it, and this is, they're in the golf course, and I can't get in the golf course, and if you're in the golf course, you're shooting up and you wouldn't see anything anyway, but it's
Hey, good job though. Good job.
Excellent.
See, David's trying to migrate into being a nature photographer now, so so that's
well,
good.
it's that time of the year, but I've been
Yeah.
getting so many aurora alerts. I've been averaging one about every half hour for the last 3 days.
Wow.
Yeah, and It's annoying because I'm in town, but anyway. But everybody else's photography is excellent, and mine is just so-so. No.
Yeah, give yourself some credit, my friend.
You know,
The our next grouping of images here, next two presentations are going to be from our friend Joe Stroud, who we know is always extremely busy, and we hope he's doing well. And
He
and
was
then,
here before. I
Yeah.
know.
okay, and then we have after that we have Rakesh, and so Joe, what you're going to see, the next three images that you're going to see are from his Fuji X-H2 with a 65 millimeter macro lens, a Westcott FJ80 SE flash, and I'm not going to pronounce this right, never heard of this brand, Cygnus Tech diffuser. So this next image is up. He says settings for the macro are between f8 and f13. Shutter speed 100 to 200, ISO 125 to 400, depending on the particular shot. He says he's adjusting little bits every time. This particular wasp image that you see is a Guinea paper wasp. He says thanks thanks and hope y'all. I'll word it the way he wrote it. Thanks. Hope y'all have a good show. Tell everyone hello for me. Hope everyone is doing well, and
Wow.
we pass on the well wishes to you as well, Joe. We hope you're doing well and everybody's healthy. And I noticed that the last few times you sent images, you're doing a lot more macro shooting lately, so that's cool.
Fantastic.
And so this
What
is
a smile.
yeah, a smile. You know what's and I am saying this, I guess, to be funny, but sometimes when you're doing a shot of an insect or something, sometimes you scare yourself when you're looking through the camera because you think it looks so much bigger. You think for a minute there, you think you're in a sci-fi movie or something. You're like, oh crap, this is kind of a scary looking bug or whatever that I took a picture of. And speaking of weird looking bugs, his next shot, I thought I knew what kind it was, and I kind of guessed right. Not the specific one, but I said this looks like a weevil, and it's what he called a cabbage stem weevil in this image. And I've personally never seen one in person. I mean, I've seen them in magazines and stuff, or on nature shows, but I've never actually seen one myself. It's pretty cool.
Beautiful.
And then he sent one more image, and this is an image of mating modeled thistle flies. And you look closely, you can see that it's definitely mating.
Yeah.
But I don't know how he found this shot. Very interesting. I mean, that would be I'd love to know how long it took him to actually find, if he was like looking for this particular species or whether he just stumbled across it. But it's a wonderful shot, wonderful image.
And this type of real macro, very close, never easy to me.
No.
Beautiful. I like the texture on the leaf or whatever they are standing on.
Yeah.
So very well done.
Yeah. Good job, Joe. Thanks for sending these in. We appreciate it. And the next images are from Rakesh. He sent in. He said he sent in a set of Jersey photos. So here is a set of Jersey photos, starting with this image here, with looks like ice on the ground, wintry shot.
And now he had to tell us where in Jersey.
Yeah, yeah. You got to say it right, Gustavo. You got to say Joyzy.
Okay. Well,
Joyzy. You got to talk like you're from Joyzy. Joe is here. Hi, Joe. Joe's commenting that he stumbled across those that last particular shot. Those insects. They were under the leaf, and he says he just turned it over, and they were the size of his thumbnail.
wow.
He says I forgot. He says I forgot a hummingbird photo. I'll have to go back. I'll have to go back and go to your original email and pull it up later on, Joe. Sorry about that. So this is the next shot from Rakesh. Osprey with away from the nest.
Oh, nice. Nice color of the sky. Beautiful.
And let's see. Then
It's a great silhouette.
and then he got this at what I find interesting in this is when you look on the left-hand side, you don't know if it's interesting because it almost looks like it's rain because of the angle of the water, but I'm not sure if it was raining or not.
It's a long exposure.
Yeah. I don't have any of the settings, so I don't know what he used, but interesting.
Yeah, nice.
The Joyzy Shore, Joyzy. And he likes to take shots that are mood. I have a mood to them, So this is definitely a moody shot, and he had to use either it was dark or he used an ND filter because the water is very milky smooth.
Yeah.
In this image.
And they probably were some motion to the clouds too.
Yeah.
Which nice. 1/6 of a second, he said.
Okay.
Yeah. That makes sense, Rakesh.
Yeah. Good job, Rakesh. Thanks a lot.
And why don't we go back to Joe Stroud Hummingbird before we move to the next person, Jeff? After you finish.
Yeah, let me find it. You're gonna have to bear with me for a minute because I got to go into my emails.
Let me see if I can see it here.
Let's see. Here we go.
I don't see it.
Here. Okay, you know what? I think it's buried in my in here somewhere. But I guess I'll just share this image from this screen. I guess it's kind of cheating, but
I think I saw it on the.
I thought I saw it on the film strip. So let me before I do that. Oh, here it is. I just skipped over it, Joe. I do have it in here. There you go. There's your hummingbird shot.
Yeah.
There we go.
I didn't forget it. I just oops. Losing control of the mouse.
Exactly.
Mouse attack.
Yeah.
Mouse attack. Here we go. So I just accidentally skipped over it, but here's the hummingbird shot.
Yes. Nice.
But so thanks, Joe. Thanks, Rakesh. The next few images we're going to see, if I could stop moving my mouse here, are images from John Ishii sent in.
Okay.
He sent them in, I think, just to he sent them to me, and I says, can I share these? And he said, no, absolutely. So this is using the GFX 100 RF that we talked about a few weeks ago, and from the last show. And he wanted to use that Fuji camera has a dial on the back where you could manually change a wide variety of aspect ratios. So he sent me 3 images using a 65 by 24 aspect ratio. So this image and the following two are going to be that same aspect ratio. So it definitely gives a different feel to the image. And come on, I'm having a problem with mouse control here. So there's the next one.
You need to borrow Chuck's cat.
Yeah. I don't have. See, Chuck has an assistant. My dog isn't even with me. My dog left me. Didn't want to be around me, I guess, tonight. So, and then he sent in one more. The Golden Arches. That's funny how on the to the right you got the outline of the fry container and the Big Mac and that must be the Big Mac.
Nice. By the way, I saw some photo from Diana on the. I think it was a photo of the sun, and if Diana listened to this, and David, you probably know about that. In her, there is a relatively large or very large sunspot, and Diana, which took that kind of sunset photo, you can see that sunspot in that photo. So I don't know whether she used a specific solar filter or he was using the atmosphere as a filter, but you can still see the sunspot.
Wow.
She would have to use a filter because the sun is so bright, and they don't make a camera with enough dynamic range.
But
get around.
if you look at the photo, it could be one of those where the sun is just above the horizon.
Mhm.
But anyway, so.
But John, it's nice to see you. Nice to see you having fun with your new camera. Glad you're getting out there and using it. So we appreciate you and Diana talking about it recently with everybody and sharing your insights and sharing some images, and Diana sharing her images the last time we got together. So we appreciate that.
And we know now what John does when he goes to a photo walk. He visits all these different food store.
Well, he's eating junk food is what he's doing. So,
Exactly.
John, are you just eating? You living on junk food or what? McDonald's, Big Macs, fries, ice cream cones. And so that's what John sent in, and so the next images we're going to see, we're getting near the end of our images, and then we'll go through and cycle through from, as we always do, beginning to end with like 4 seconds in images we go through. So the next images are from Scubarazzi. So before I show you the first image, I'll give you like the introduction to what you're about to see that he sent. And he says, this time the topic is violence and defense. And he says, in the monastery, we had a lot of action in the last few weeks. He says, first, the resident monastery kestrels were challenged by up to 4 kestrels. They had to protect their nesting box against the intruders, but they did stand their ground. A few days later, a new challenger came, a female goosander. She is much bigger and her beak is much longer, so the kestrels tried to protect their nesting box, more or less successful. And he was lucky to be there at the right moment in the monastery to take a few pictures of the action. And he says it was hard to select the images. We'll put the first one up here. He says it was hard to select the images to share with us because there are a few very spectacular images. So this is the first image, and you got the one bird like almost laying on its back at the peak here on the monastery, and then the other one coming down.
We're not seeing the pictures.
You're not seeing the pictures?
Yeah. Somehow
the link went away.
Yeah.
That probably was my fault, Jeff, because I tried to have the video in the lineup. And
okay, so that's all right. Not a big deal. Not a big deal.
We
We
show
have
the
the
video.
we have the technology, and we will get to the image in a second here. Uh-oh. Why isn't it showing up? That ain't good. That is not good. Let me try again. We will try this again.
Are those sirens from Calgary, David?
Yeah, I turned off my microphone because they come to take me away.
Yeah.
Here we go. Now we're back. Now we're back in business here. Give me a second to get to the actual my actual app here, so I can get to the next picture. So this is what I was saying with the one. The one is on its first description here. It says the Kestrel was sitting on the rooftop when the other one tried to attack it. The bottom one did jump up and covered with his claws. The image is strongly cropped. As the roof is not far away, the image was edited in Photoshop, and due to the late time in the evening and the bad light, he used the denoise in Photoshop Raw. Also, once again, you can see that the old Sigma F-mount lens is sharp, and even with the FTZ adapter, the image quality is good, even with, or the F2Z, I don't know if it's a typo, it's F2Z adapter, the image quality is good even with low light, and the autofocus is working well. This is with the Nikon Z52, which is a relatively new camera that Paul procured, I think, for himself as a Christmas gift, if I remember correctly. Sigma F-mount lens, 150 to 600, 1/2500th of a second, f6.3, ISO 2500 at 600 millimeters. So this is the first image in a series of images that you're going to see, and then we're going to attempt to share a video that Paul sent some of us privately. Probably not to clog up the show too much, but it's such a good video. We're going to attempt to share it, and hopefully you'll be able to see nature. I don't know if you want to say nature at its best or nature at its worst with live action video, but it is definitely impressive, and hopefully that video will come through very well. So let me bring up the next image. So this is one Kestrel obviously trying to attack the other one in the air. And normally the aggressor comes from the top and the back, the bottom one covered by turning on its back. And it's like obviously the talons are kind of intertwined here somewhat. And then they grab their fangs. The bottom one did even a backflip midair. And the editing is similar to the previous image, using this time he used the Nikon Z8 camera with the 180 to 600 at 1/3200th of a second, f6 ISO 3600 at 470 millimeters.
Wow.
So this is image 2 out of the set. I got to move some stuff around on my screen here so I can get at things. Then here we go. This is where the Kestrels are trying to defend their nesting box against the Goosander. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. She's coming in, but the Kestrels start and flying her way. Sometimes she's able to avoid them, but often they did hit her hard. Talons first. The Goosander is bigger and heavier. I mean, obviously, looks kind of like a pretty doggone good sized duck, you know, bigger and heavier than the two of the kestrels put together. And he says this was taken in the late evening, and so the editing is similar to the previous images. And this is, I think, all these following images. I won't read all the metadata. You may see it on the screen, but it's all with the Z8 and the Z180 to 600 millimeter lens. So here's where, you know, the defensive posture to protect the nesting box. Then the continued, you know, they're just trying to harass it, you know, quite a bit to get it to get the heck out of Dodge. But unfortunately, it does have the size advantage. You know, here it's like coming down on that bird,
Yes.
and let me see the next. This next shot is I mean, they're all great. This next shot is really going to blow you away. You got and he describes it perfectly. In this last image, you can see the male kestrel surfing on the back of the goosander. And after the chase, the kestrel did catch up and started his attack. This was taken during the day, but he said the birds were also in the shadow. During that day, the sky was also clouded. But this is so cool. It reminds me. You say surfing, but my first thought when I saw this image was like a cowboy riding a bull,
Bronco. Yeah.
a bronco, you know, or something like that, riding a horse or a bull. It's cool, very cool shot.
Wow.
And then he goes on to say that you know, all the pictures were taken in the evening, and he says that's why the colors are not very good or a little bit flat. But you know,
They look good.
believe me, nobody's sitting there when you get pictures like this. Nobody's really paying attention to the colors. They're paying attention to your subject matter and the subject, what they're doing, and the engagement between these different species of birds is incredible.
So what speed he was shooting? I can read it. 1/.
1/2500th here.
Exactly.
1/2500th of a second. F6 ISO 1800 at 470 millimeters, using a 180 to 600 Z mount lens.
You see, that photo would have been impossible a few years ago.
Yeah. And he says he did take some of the pictures not in the full 600 millimeter, you know, the farthest zoom range on this zoom. He says there's two reasons for that. He said one is he wanted to take a few of the pictures already when the birds were not close to each other. And the other one is that it's easier to follow. It's obvious, and this is very true. It's easier to follow moving birds with a wider angle than when you're fully zoomed in. So the longer your telephoto lens, or that when you're at the far end of your zoom lens, it is harder to pick up and track birds, especially when they're in a fighting mode like this. And it makes more sense when you can, in this case, using a zoom where you back off a little bit with the zoom, so you make sure that you can track the action. And then if you got to crop a little bit afterwards, it's no big deal. He says also something what is hard with animal photography is that with such action shots, the photographer has no impact on the light, including the directions and the background. Action's very short and happens just where it happens. Unfortunately, the wild animals do not have a feeling for good image composition. And thankfully he did make it in here tonight, which we appreciate. And then he left me a comment to answer a question that Gustavo asked at some point. Says he has an answer to Gustavo's question about the Z52 firmware. He says he's not done the update yet. He says he only does updates if there are any bug fixes or features that are useful for him. He says maybe one more thing about the Z52 that's much better than the Z50 and the Z8. He says it does not overheat, unlike the other two, and I'm assuming that's in video mode.
I remember Jeff. That I mean, he's saying that he's not going all the way to 600, but he has a crop camera, correct? In for some of the photos. Although this is with a C8, so he gets.
Yes, this is with a Z8. So these are only, if they're cropped, they're only a little bit cropped after the fact. But
I think one of the early ones was with the C50 too.
right, the first one I think was with the. Let me look back here. The
Fantastic.
yeah, the first image, the first image was with the Z52, and all the other ones were with the Z8. So great set of images. Why don't I temporarily? The only ones left are my images, and we'll skip that for a moment here, and we'll see if we can introduce the video clip. And Gustavo has it up on the screen here, and I'll let him start it. And this is a live video, that of a camera that he had in the nesting box.
Yes.
And you're going to see some things that may be disturbing for a young audience. So if you have a young child with you, you may want to send him or her to bed right now. And
a reminder, because obviously we don't have here the narration from Paul. You will see some of the same characters that you saw. First, you will see the different set of the European kestrels competing for that box, and later on you will see the goosander trying also to appropriate the box. And he told us that the goosander finally succeeded. So I'm going to run the show now, and let's see whether it plays. Okay, that's the issue, Jeff, that happened to you last time. I need to run it here.
There we go. Yeah, it still comes in a little choppy and not normal speed, but at least you could see it.
So they fight in flight, but they also fight inside the box.
Yeah. Now that image, you can only saw it for a second, but that image was like the one bird had its talons literally right there on the face of the other one that's kind of laying flat. That was amazing. I mean, the talons are like right covering the face of the bird.
So Terry, this is proper video. It looks choppy because of the restriction that we have with YouTube.
Yeah, we can't do much about that. But at least it gives you an idea. And then here's where, okay, now you see an egg in the nest.
From the dogs of goosander.
Yeah, the gooslander. I'm sure that's the gooselander's egg at that point. I think Terry said there were 8 eggs in there from the gooslander, and now it's making sure that it gets the kestrels out of the box.
Although, yeah, just watching it again here, I see that there is also other eggs. Okay. So anyway, so fantastic. Let me stop sharing this and we can go back for you to share. But thank you, Paul, for both the pictures that you sent to the image review, but also the video. We certainly appreciate it.
Yeah, excellent job. And okay, he says the 2 eggs were from the gooselander.
The bigger eggs.
The bigger eggs, yeah. And then there were 2 small kestrel eggs in there, but obviously if the Gooslander took over, we know what's going to happen with the other eggs. So
Yeah.
unfortunately. The last images here to share are mine. So good time to go on a bathroom break if you want.
Okay.
So the first shot here, let me make,
Maximize it, Jeff, because we.
okay. Here we go.
Excellent. Thank you.
So the first shot here is a pair of Bonaparte gulls,
Okay.
and this was one in a whole series of shots, and I didn't really want to show all my pictures of just these 2 birds, but at first glance you may look at this image and say, oh, they're going through a mating ritual or whatever. Well, that's far from what reality is in this case. The one with the head down, lower to the water, was actually the first gull that was in that particular area, and then the other one flew in and landed. And there were several minutes of where the one at the bottom was circling the other bird, and eventually it ended up being a fight, and the one that was there first shoot off the other one. But like I said, from this shot you think it might be a mating thing, but really it was almost like the one was eyeing the other one and figuring out whether it was going to be able to win the fight or not, and they eventually got in a fight and the original one won. This was all these pictures are going to be, unless otherwise noted, will be taken with the Z9 with the 800 PF. This was at 1/1000th of a second f/6.3 ISO 900.
Nice colors.
So the next shot, this was my an example of my visualization. Okay, we were on the beach, and there were a lot of sanderlings, and they move so fast across the beach. And I said to myself, well, I visualized what I wanted to show. I says, I want to have the legs blurry. I want to show that feeling of movement, and I want to have the legs blurry, and I want to try to have a part, if as much of the body in focus as well, but I want the legs to be blurry. So I mean, I had to practice and try different settings, and eventually this was what I visualized that I wanted to capture, was the speed of this very, very small bird. And this was 1/60th of a second. 1/60th of a second, f/6.3 ISO 200.
Yeah, I like to see the movement in the picture, Jeff, because having everything tack sharp all the time I think is overrated, as much as we spend fortunes trying to get sharper and sharper pictures. But this works in this instance.
Yeah.
And I do it a lot too, is I'll purposely pick a slower shutter speed so I get movement.
Yeah. And now the next image, this was taken in the winter months, this past winter, I believe in February. And this was a picture of a yellow-rumped warbler, and it was flying in to eat the berries off this tree. Now there were several trees, and these trees are located in the parking lot area, basically near the restroom at the park, north part of the park. And the only reason these berries were there to be eaten in February was there were everything has a story, and the stories are always interesting, I think. Anyway, there were 2 mockingbirds that would sit on top of these trees, several trees, and we usually get cedar waxwings that come in and feed on these berries, and those doggone mockingbirds even though they were far outnumbered, they scared all the waxwings away, and they never ate the berries off this tree. And then eventually the mockingbirds, who didn't appear to be eating any of these berries, left the neighborhood because I guess their job was to get rid of the waxwings. Then the yellow-rumped warblers and the bluebirds and other smaller birds came in and started feeding on these berries. So that's the story behind this. The next shot is red-winged blackbird, and I just like the shot because of the multitude of colors. You know, the sunlit, dried up grasses, and the color and the blue background with the coloration of the blackbird, with a nice nose, with its claw, with its talons wrapped around a few blades of grass. That
So
was
Jeff,
that.
in
What's
the
that?
prior photo, were you paneling as well? Were you moving with the
When in
motion?
flight? Yes,
Yes.
and I was paneling the camera
Okay.
when I took the shot. I was panning it a little bit,
Okay.
and I was using I didn't use a super fast shutter speed. I wanted to have some blurring in the wings. I didn't, for whatever reason. I guess I did not write the data down on that shot, but I'm pretty sure that I did not. I wasn't shooting it at like 1/1200th of a second either. So I intentionally got the blurring in the feathers. Now this is a Jeff and Leslie thing. I don't know if they're still around. This was a shot recently from Brookgreen Gardens, and this was using the Nikon ZF with the 24-120, 1/500th of a second at f9, ISO 400. And this was a direct shooting straight down on this particular plant. And I think I've done similar pictures with this plant before, but what I find interesting with this plant is, a lot of plants, you have, the base of the plant, and you got your normal green leaves coming off of it or whatnot. And then the shoot goes up, and many a times there's other shoots that go off of the main shoot, and you have, multiple flowers. Well, and for this particular plant, it's like each plant just has one. At least when the ones that I was looking at, was like each plant had one flower on it. Then there'd be another plant with one more flower on it. But it's I don't know what kind it is, but it's definitely kind of an interesting looking. It looks like an alien face hugger in the floral world. Then I got two more here. The next shot was also at Brookgreen Gardens, and when you look at this shot, most people will say, "Well, that's just a nice little snapshot." And there was a lot more that went on to capture this picture than just aiming and pushing the shutter button. This is obviously a statue of a little girl with some freshly grown, freshly planted flowers in the foreground, and I took this with the ZF, and usually any shots I take with the ZF, I'm fully manual mode. I'm not using auto ISO. All my settings I'm using are manual. So I had to fool with this one, because the reality was, with this picture, when I was seeing it with my eyes, the flowers on the far left were the sun. They don't open till 9:30 in the morning, unfortunately. So it doesn't take long before you're kind of in harsh light. So you can see, like on the background, the left, the hedge or the greenery there, the left side has a little more light on it than the right-hand side does. And the flowers, the left-hand side flowers were blown out. And so I fooled around with a lot of settings on the camera, because I wanted to balance it where I could reduce the blown out highlights, if not eliminate them, but at the same time, I didn't want the statue to be pitch black or, really, really dark. So I kind of fooled around with the settings until I got something that I thought was okay. I'm going to need to, bring it into Lightroom or Photoshop, and I'm just going to have to fool around with the blacks and the whites a little bit and the highlights a little bit, but not a lot. And I was able to get, what I wanted it to look like. But it's, looks like just a conventional snapshot, but there was actually a process in getting this result. It wasn't just, look through the camera and take the picture. And then the last shot was taken as the sun was coming up on the jetty at the off the north parking lot, on the north part of the beach area at Huntington Beach State Park. And what I liked about this shot was the thin line. You don't really know what he's standing on. That's actually the tar on top of the jetty. And then you get the nice outline with the light on his legs. And I kind of like that shot. And then obviously it appears that he was trying to take a picture with a camera. And that's it. That's all I got. That was at, let's see if I put the settings down for that. That was 1/800th of a second, f6.3, ISO 140. And so that's it for our images. So once again, I thank everybody for their contributions immensely. As always, I think it was a fantastic representation of everybody's talent that comes on and is kind enough to visit this channel and share with us. And may seem that I do too many thank yous, but I sincerely mean it. I can't thank everybody enough for their efforts and their willingness to share what they do, because I think we all know, and we've probably all been there at one time, that maybe for many, many years, we really rarely shared our images. We kept them to ourselves and might not have been always comfortable in sharing them. And as you get older, or at least for me anyway, as I got older, much older, I said, well, maybe somebody can get some enjoyment out of them and learn a little something, and I'm going to start sharing stuff. And then I'm glad that all you folks are willing to do the same thing. So we're going to go through a quick 4-second sequential order of shots here, and we're going to move on. And then those of you that came late get to see all the shots, at least for a few seconds, and you can come back and watch the show tomorrow. This is images from Bob, from Bob Our Photos. This is with his Yashica mat TLR 6x6 medium format camera. That was his dad's camera, actually. And I think a lot of us like to drive out in the country. And I know when I lived in Connecticut, because I wasn't necessarily near a ton of birds. I mean, bird photography wasn't my bag at the time. It was more seascapes, landscapes, driving through on the country roads, the farms, and getting pictures of old tractors and old dilapidated buildings and barns and things like that. And I still enjoy getting pictures like that, as does Bob.
This one has an air conditioner.
And the weird thing is that air conditioner looks like it's in pretty good shape.
Exactly.
I'm surprised somebody didn't try to crawl in there and steal it.
Woody?
And these are from Woody. I lost my, give me a second here. I lost my cheat sheet, so I don't see the names of, I may not remember everybody here that sent these in, but Gustavo probably has a better memory than me. So hopefully between the two of us, we'll remember who took all these images. But Woody sent in these. And then this third image he sent in was from the show The Waltons. This was the house that they lived in on the TV show. And then Terry sent in some images. Terry makes it easy because he puts his name on the photo, so that helps. I don't have to say, gee, is this Terry? Terry always puts his name on the photo, so we always know it's Terry. And interesting spoonbill in Australia. And he said this was a black neck still or something, but it doesn't have a black neck.
It's kind of stork.
Stork. Black neck stork without a black neck. Maybe that's a hybrid. And then here's looking at you, kid. Picture. And then he shot this in that 65:24 aspect ratio that is the same as what the images that John took with the Fuji camera. And then we got a series of images from Martin Hild. And he found the owl after heavy rain. So the owl, he should have tossed the owl a towel, Martin, so he or she could dry himself off. It's a
bad hair day.
Yeah. And then he got the first orchid shot here, the single orchid. There's definitely, I mean, there are people that there are photographers out there that I found on YouTube and other places that specialize in minimalist photography. And these are images that Randall sent in of his noisy sparrow that bothers him relentlessly.
Yeah, big mouth.
But he's still nice enough to give him water, let him take a bath.
Every so
And
often.
Randall, by the way, I think these are all male.
Yeah, that's male.
All of them.
Oh, even the one that looks kind of puffy.
Yes.
Wow.
I think.
Because I thought that was female.
No, the females are, I think, a little bit, don't have that brown cap.
Okay.
I think they're all European sparrows, house sparrows.
Okay.
Don't say European. That ain't nice.
They are from Europe.
And then they create myrtles.
Yeah.
And as I forget who commented and said, the bird saying, "Where's the owner? I need more water." And then Anita. Then Anita sent us a series of shots from the Grand Canyon, and Gustavo, as you said, it's from the southern area.
Yeah, southern rim.
Southern Rim.
Southern rim.
She confirmed.
Now, does the northern rim look different, considerably different?
Somehow, because it's higher altitude, so it has a different perspective.
Right, and it's closed part of the year. During the wintertime.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, no roads going to it, right? Yeah. You close off that section. Yeah, these are all so pretty. I'm sure she's probably gone to parts of Arizona, Badlands or whatever, and taken pictures in those other areas too.
Mm.
And then these were from, I believe these were from Jeff. These were from Jeff Sluter. Series of shots of the osprey diving and hitting, and then leaving. And then he got some flower shots, and then he got this wonderful multiple bloom of these flowers.
Yes, beautiful.
And then Gustavo decided to be in a foul mood tonight and share foul with us. Foul from Hawaii.
Yes.
That one, I that's a cool looking bird. I like that one.
Yeah.
That's
They
neat.
are.
And then this one's really cute. And then we got then Luis sent in some images, the hooded merganser, and then he got some mallards in flight, landing in, 2 males and a female. It looks like there's already a male and a female in the water. And then he took a composite shot of the seagull, two images. And then he somehow killed Wile E. Coyote in order for him to get a shot of the Roadrunner.
Well, like Coyote hasn't caught up
Yeah.
yet.
Well, he got
Well, he's still
blown up.
recovering
Was
from-
it? He all used to get blown up by the Acme bombs, I believe. Was it Acme?
Yeah.
And then Robert Rosado sent us some images of the state capitol building in Connecticut, a couple different views of that. And then he followed that up with some interesting images of a cabin. One on a moody day when he was kind of getting a feel for what he visualized in the next shot, which was a multitude of images that were put together, foreground and sky, along with some creative lighting, with some low intensity lighting, and opening up the shutters inside of this cabin to make it look like somebody was in it. Very well thought out and planned image.
Indeed.
And he says this is the largest tree in Connecticut. I don't know if it's. And then I snuck in this picture that Jeff took that he sent me of him and his grandson. And then we have a series of images that David was kind enough to send me an image that always, anything with height always bothers me. So of course he sent in a picture that makes me feel like, oh my, that's way too high for me to ever think of being on a train on top of that. It would never happen.
And you can see cars in the behind the tower on the right. Give you an idea how high this is.
And then we jump to this image where he captured the fence posts here with a series of the hat collection. And then
I hope he nailed them, David.
Pardon?
I hope he nailed them to the pole.
I'm sure they're fastened well because they get an awful lot of wind down there, and if that grain silo doesn't have grain in it, it wouldn't be there for long because I've seen them blow away too.
So this guy must have some medieval tendencies or heads in the spike.
well, yeah, better that it's hats and not actually heads.
Exactly.
Well,
And then,
some of these branches have been in the family for generations, so so they got lots of time to collect stuff.
And then David managed to get a couple eagle shots here, and then the next one at 16, if I remember right, 1600 millimeters with the 800 PF with a 2x teleconverter on it. David was about 5 miles away when he took this shot. And then we got a series of shots that Joe Stroud sent us, starting with the hummingbird shot, which I inadvertently skipped over initially.
And all the wonderful macro.
And then he did a series of macro, 3 macro shots. I think this was, what was it, the paper guinea wasp, and then a weevil. And then he managed to find, he flipped over. He said he flipped over this leaf, and he got a picture of these 2 insects mating. I'm going to ask Joe, when you flip, I don't know if he's still here or not, when he flipped over the leaf and he saw this, did he say, "Oh, sorry to interrupt"?
Yeah, but can I watch?
Yeah. And then we got a set of Joyzy shots from Rakesh. This one obviously in the wintertime. Osprey in the nest. The Joyzy shore. And then a nice moody shot here with obviously an ND filter. And then Mr. Ishii was nice enough to send us in some interesting aspect ratioed shots from his new Fuji GFX 100 RF fixed lens medium format camera that just got introduced. John has the one that's all black body, and then Diana has the one that's silver and black. And then Paul, aka Scubarazzi, sent us some really intense fighting for your life type of shots between different kestrels trying to raid the nesting box of an established pair, and they had to fight. They had to fight off other kestrels, and then unfortunately,
Of course, Jeff, now that he told us some of the background story, he need to keep us up to date to what happened.
Yeah,
Who succeeded?
Yep.
Did he get the other box?
Yeah, and Jeff, could you slow down just a little bit, because it takes longer to resolve the pictures on YouTube than it does on Restream.
Okay.
And on YouTube, they're pixelated more.
Okay. So he got a quite a success. I'm sure he probably has 100 more photographs that are just as good as these, but you gotta pick a handful out, right, to share. But he probably could have shared 100 different other shots that would have been just as impressive, I'm sure. And then unfortunately the big gun comes in to try to take over the box. The Gooslander. So that's very yeah, unfortunately when you have the kestrels there having to defend that box so much, obviously they're not able to tend to the eggs,
Yeah.
And things don't work out too well when that happens. And then this image is a precursor to the following one, where it's all the kestrel needed to top off this picture. Paul, I'm going to give you a suggestion on this next picture we're going to show. do a Photoshop and add a cowboy hat on the kestrel's head. That would be pretty neat.
Ah.
And that's quite the image. And then and then we round up with a handful of shots that I threw in here. The Bonaparte gulls, which ended up fighting with each other, trying to visualize and capture the speedy movement of a sanderling on the beach.
Lovely.
And we've got the yellow-rumped warbler, and this was, I think I said it was in February, this past February, eating these berries that got left behind because the mockingbirds wouldn't let the waxwings come and eat them, or they would have all been gone. And then Bob and I always, we like talk to the red-winged blackbirds, because it's like, we feel like we see the same ones all the time and they know who we are, and it's like, can you pose for us? Can you turn your head to the left? Can you turn your head to the right? Like we actually think that we can communicate with the animals, which highly unlikely, but I think they know. They get used to seeing certain people all the time. They get very comfortable. This was a flower of some type in Brook Green Gardens, and this was another image of a statue. I'm not a huge statue lover, but they do have beautiful sculptures and different statues of all different sizes in this botanical gardens / sculpture, because the Huntingtons who were, I think, if I remember right, the husband, I think he inherited his wealth. I think his father was had money invested in the railroads, if I remember right. And he inherited a ton of money. And he spent a lot of his time actually working with people that I think spoke different languages and working with people that needed help. I think he did a lot of good work with his volunteer activities or his involvement with people. And the wife was a famous American sculptress, and so they had this property, which is now Brook Green Gardens. And then they actually owned Huntington Beach State Park. So however that estate is being managed, they lease Huntington Beach State Park to the state of South Carolina for $1 per year, and they let the state manage the park. And on that park is a castle called Atalaya Castle that was the Huntington family's winter vacation home, and they would come down here to South Carolina, from New York or New Jersey or somewhere up in the north in the northern part of the states, and they would come down and stay here in the wintertime. And part of that castle is an area where there are large rooms with what do you call it? They look like little jail cells, and they were meant for, because she was a sculptress, lots of times they would get a wild animal, a bear or whatever, and it would be temporarily captive in one of those rooms with the bars, like a jail cell, and she would be looking at that animal and getting inspiration to do make sculptures. So that's kind of like the story of these two areas, Brook Green Gardens and Huntington State Beach Park, were all owned by the same people. And then the last image here is just early morning shot with someone on the jetty taking a photo. So that's it. And we will exit out of the picture sharing here. Give me a second. And get back to everybody can see. Everybody can see our lovely faces. Don't get scared, people. We don't mean to scare you. We don't mean to scare you.
After all the wonderful images, now this.
Yeah. Now the great disappointment is we're here. This is what you're left with now. We apologize. I tried to hire some models to come on, male and female, to blend in some youth into the panel, and there are no takers. Nobody wants to be around us old people. So that's just how it works out. And let me scroll through the chat here and get near the bottom.
So Jeff, it's 9:30. So you still want to do the news and?
I could do a little bit. I mean,
Let's talk at 10.
holding up okay.
Okay.
We'll try to. I don't think we're going to go to 1 o'clock, folks. I mean, I'm not going to get into the details as to why, but we'll talk about a little bit of rumor news that I can dig up. There was we start with Nikon rumors, and there was apparently a reader from Reddit, a Reddit discussion that passed along information from a Nikon rep stating if there's gear that you want, buy it before June, as that is when the potential price increases are going to kick in, which are unrelated to tariffs, just normal price increases. And then there was a comment made that apparently the latest lens rebates that are out there now that expire on June 1st, the amount of lens offerings was apparently pared down a bit by Nikon, along with some of the rebate amounts being made lower than anticipated for whatever reasons. But a full list of all the deals, obviously, you can find it either going on Nikon Rumors site or your local camera store. Will probably have a listing of all the deals as well. And then there was an article about I picked out just a few statements from, and this was probably an older article on Nikon Rumors. They had a article about a CP Plus interview they had with Nikon representatives, and a few things that came out in that interview was emphasis. They have an emphasis on capturing market share in the full frame segment with strong sales from the Z8, the ZF, and they have confidence that the Z6 III's performance is going to get a lot of buyers, although it's relatively new camera. They mentioned new optics, which really aren't new anymore. They've already been announced, and are available, such as the Z28 to 135 f4 PZ lens that Roy talked about a little bit the prior show. Thank you for that. And which they say is designed for video professionals. Dun, dun, dun. So Roy is technically a video professional, so remember that.
Yeah, that's it.
And so they're hoping people that have Z6 III, Z8s, and Z9s use that lens accordingly on those cameras, and it reflects their growing focus in the cinema arena now that they acquired Red, of course, a while back. And then they have a committed to expand the Z-mount lens lineup, and they're talking about nearing or exceeding the goal of 50 lenses by 2025, including, and they mentioned the lens that just came out, the 35 millimeter f1.2s. Emphasis on enhancing video features on the Z series cameras to attract videographers and content creators, aligning with Nikon's 2025 video strategy. And then they said something about, which I thought was interesting, possible mention of responding to customer feedback, such as a demand for more vintage-inspired designs, such as the ZF or the desire for Nikon to make. And I don't blame people; they should complain. They want compact DX lenses. for their DX cameras. Nikon has not done a good job. They can talk, they have a great suite of lenses, but they really have kind of like ignored the APS-C camera bodies and lenses on those, and have basically fallen back and made it so people pretty much have to get third-party lenses for those cameras. Now, on February 27th of 2025, in Yokohama, Japan, during CP Plus, Monster Adapter announced the release of their new, or soon to come out in the summertime, apparently, the LA-FZ1 electronic mount adapter, so that you can use the screw drive F-mount autofocus lenses on your on your Z-bodied cameras. So they will have built-in focus and aperture motors. The bad news is that apparently they're going to price it around $400. That's the bad. Yeah, we would hope it would be more like $250 maybe, but 400 is a little bit painful. Sony rumors, there wasn't a lot. I mean, they're having a sale as well, as all these guys do. If you want to see, Sony Alpha Rumors does have an extensive listing of their product offerings that are currently on sale, so you can go there and look at it. And then they made a point of calling out what they called a super deal at Amazon. And of course, I got this information maybe 4 or 5 days ago, so I don't know if the deal is still on or not. But at the time that I was looking for this information, Amazon was selling the Sony A6100 with the 16 to 50 millimeter and the 55 to 210 millimeter lens kit for $698. Normally it's $1,099.99. So there are a lot of people out there that are big fans of the A6100 series camera. And if you're one of them and you're looking for a deal, now might be your time to. It would be a great camera just to have in your car, type of thing, so you have something, handy to grab, when you're just driving around. They also, Sony rumors talked about the new Sigma 200 millimeter f2 FE lens is going to be announced before summertime comes. And they also posted several YouTube reviews on the 300 to 600 millimeter f4 Sigma lens. And my only comments on the Sigma lens is, my job isn't to sit here to knock other brands. And like I say, every lens, there's a right lens out there for everyone. And I think that particular lens, what I find very interesting about it is I think optically it's probably a very exceptional lens and very good build quality. I have no doubt about that. And but obviously, if you look at, let's say, lenses that you kind of say is in the same genre, it's the heaviest of them all. It's definitely it's 8.75 pounds. And so that's definitely a lens that probably lends itself more to a sports photographer that's on the sidelines with it mounted on a tripod doing a football game or a baseball game, or maybe a birder who is focusing on a nesting area and isn't planning to walk around all day with it, because it's definitely not a lightweight lens.
But Jeff,
what's that?
But Jeff, the fact that they made a constant aperture zoom on that range, that's a remarkable technology achievement. Because remember,
it is. But everything has its.
It has its.
Everything has its. What do you call it? I don't want to say negatives per se, but everything has something that you have to consider.
The weight is an issue, but I tell you, that lens and that price, constant aperture, all the way to 600 millimeter, I didn't think that was possible to make such a lens.
Yeah. Now, like I said, I'm going to harp on the weight issue, I guess, a little bit here, but it's 8.75 pounds, and
Oh, no,
and
no,
you and
no.
I both have the 600 PF, which is 3.24 pounds. You got the 800 PF is 5.2 pounds, and if you had the
Yeah,
600, the 600 with the 600 F4 with the TC built in is 7.2 pounds. So even the bigger Nikon lenses are still over a pound lighter than this. So you just have to keep that into consideration, that it's a unique lens. Like Gustavo says, it's a fixed aperture. It's not a variable aperture lens, and it's f4, and it's going to be exceptional build quality. There's no doubt about it. But you got to look at your use case, as Matt Irwin likes to say. What's your use case, and if it fits the bill for you, it is priced really good for what it is.
But not long ago, both wildlife photographers, we were working on a tripod because the old G lenses and D lenses were as heavy as this, right?
Well, and you didn't have IBIS,
Oh, sure.
right?
Oh,
So
but
you
But
didn't have
like the
IBIS for a
comment.
long
I
time.
like the comment from Mossman that the color is the most offensive than the weight. I tell you, Mossman, for me too. I hate those white color lenses. Hate it. And
Nikon
this
made
one-
some too. Nikon
yeah,
made four of them.
Yeah, they made a few. I think, just to shock the world.
and this particular Sigma lens, that white is even like a very matte white, so it looks. I mean, talk
It looks
about
white. It looks white.
it looks white. Talk about guys going with this lens and no neoprene cover, no, and then full camouflage for sure. Somebody was,
You know, like I understand the reason why the
Yes.
lens is white, but I don't like the reason. And that's one of the reasons why I went with Nikon, because I knew I'd be getting the better glass, and the last thing that I wanted is people to know what brand I was using by the color of my glass.
exactly. And David, most people that use this lens for wildlife will put some sort of skin or neoprene cover. Remember you were talking about
I've done that for all of my glass that's longer than 400 millimeters.
exactly. But then I don't know, when you put the neoprene skin or something, did you lose the advantages of that white reflective cover? I
I'm
think
sure you do.
exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, Jeff.
No, that's all right. Yeah, I mean, you're because normally you're going to have, it's going to be green and black or whatever, or tan and
Exactly.
green, and so now it's going to absorb the heat more than in reflecting the heat that the white would.
Exactly.
And the way those neoprene covers are designed is this green and the brown and whatever is only on the outside because it's black foam on the inside, and that'll retain the heat.
Well, you leave the neoprene on that white lens long enough, the white lens will eventually turn black if you leave it on long enough, probably.
I'm sure it will.
But for sure, I mean, a zoom lens with a constant aperture. I mean, Roy can tell you. I mean, that is on that zoom range, fantastic. I tell you, for me, being specialized in telephoto, I this is a lens that I like. Okay? I guarantee you, image quality is much better than the 180 to 600 millimeter. Obviously,
Well, it should be. You're paying a lot more for it.
yes, but definitely a lot more. Definitely, you're carrying a lot more weight for sure.
Yeah.
But it's four.
And
Now,
then your 600 TC is going to become a walk around lens in comparison. Well, but
well, you'll end up with one arm like Popeye. One arm will be real big, the other one will be real skinny.
You should change arms every so often to even your body out.
Just got to eat your can of spinach every day. Now on the Fuji side of life here, they do have a list for those that are fortunate enough to be able to acquire the new GFX 100 RF camera body. They have a full list of recommended SD cards for that camera on Fuji Rumors. And then they had a big write-up on what they were coming out in the future, what they call a Fuji half frame camera called the X half, that was going to have a 10 millimeter f2.8 lens on a 1-inch sensor, meaning it would be equivalent to a 27 millimeter full frame equivalent. And the camera is supposed to be announced on May 22nd, 1 a.m. in New York time. And then they said it has a feature called the new film roll mode, and I'll talk about that in a second. Vertical LCD, optical viewfinder, exposure compensation dial, and made in China, which AKA causes the problem if you live in the United States. So the mode that the Fuji Rumors is calling a film roll mode is because just like shooting on film, you can't review any of your images immediately or swap, just like you can't swap rolls after each shot. So like if you take 36 pictures, you got to wait till you shoot them all and then you can review them. So you can't review them as you take them. And so he says, it is what it is, and I guess it was going to be priced at around $700, and he says, of course, they make a point. Now, this is me reading from their website, so don't throw stones at me. He says, but attention, this was the price set before Trump announced the huge tariffs. He says, we know the Fujifilm X half is made in China, so it will be subject to 145% import taxes as it stands now. So a $700 camera is going to sell in the United States for $1,715. So he says, I don't know the value of it at import, but it would be around $500, which would still bump it to $1,225. He says, in short, the Fujifilm X half will be impossible to sell in the United States for that price. No one is going to spend between upwards to $1,715 for a half frame camera. It's just not going to happen. He says, unless Fujifilm works out some magic to absorb or bypass the tariffs or whatever, but not likely. The GFX 100 RF started shipping in the USA, as they reported from the massive Fujifilm GFX group. So they said they previously reported that the first shipment reached the US before the tariffs hit, but that now pre-orders have basically stopped on that camera model because they did not ship enough to fulfill pre-orders in the U.S. and the U.S. Camera distributors are not going to pay the price that it's going to cost with the tariffs. So if you didn't already get your GFX 100 RF, you won't be able to get a GFX 100 RF unless you call John Ishii up and you have him buy it for you in Malaysia and then ship it to you. But I'm not suggesting that you bother John. But then again, if you want one, you got to bother John. And then Canon Rumors, not really nothing other than they're raising their prices by 7 to 8%, regardless, nothing to do with tariffs. Raising the prices 7 to 8% on Canon cameras basically as soon as April 21st of last month. And they said if it doesn't happen that day, it'll happen before the end of April. And then obviously they are also going to be raising the price of Canon gear in Canada, which David could probably speak to a little bit if he knows anything about that.
But I try to stay away from that stuff. But I heard about it. Like I said in the comment here, there's an awful lot more stuff being shipped to Canada now, and versus the States. So that those of us that don't live to that country to the south of me don't have to pay the tariffs, because right now all the major camera companies ship to the States. So everything gets tariffed and then they ship it to Canada and we get to pay the tariff too.
Yeah.
But
So
but
there-
shipping it direct to Canada, we don't.
So that's
And-
really, that's really all I had from nitpicking a little bit to kind of fill in the 1 hour, what would have been another hour and 10 minutes on this show. But I think we'll end it a little early. So, I mean, I guess what I want to do is if you guys seen anything in the chat that we should bring up and discuss on the panel.
One thing that we have is that Roy was offering to share some of the videos that he have been doing, and depending on you, Jeff, we can do that. I don't know how long the videos are, Roy.
Only short.
Okay.
No, we could do it. We could do it. You could share them.
And the only thing that I also capture in the news, Jeff, on my list here that you didn't mention, you mentioned most of the thing, is obviously they were because we a couple of weeks have passed. There was some update on Lightroom, Adobe Photoshop, correct? With some fantastic masking improvement that allows to treat the work, different part of the image very well, correct? And I think I think in the YouTube channels and other of those kind of website, there was a lot of discussion around the D6 being discontinued, correct, and the end of the DSLR. So anyway, let's go and see what Roy.
Yeah. I think I would expect the Z6 II is going to go away. I would be shocked if it does not. You know, why at this point? Why would you want to expend your resources on that when they're really trying to obviously shift everything to their their new mirrorless lineup. So
the other thing that was mentioned, Jeff, that I don't know if you mentioned, is that there is a new Nikon camera registered in Asia and China, correct? So that means that indeed we are going to see another camera. Now, what camera it is, we don't know, the C7 III or something on the lower part of the lineup, or I don't think it's going to be the C9 II.
no,
but there is something registered already, and that tells us that within 3 to 6 months we should see something else. So anyway,
and I think a lot of talk with the Z9 II is that it's not going to be revolutionary; it's going to be evolutionary.
Exactly.
So I'll click on. I got Roy's.
Ooh.
Just testing out the 28 to 135.
Very good.
So are you talking to the bird saying pretty bird, pretty bird?
No, you won't go away then. That's the one that eats the house.
Oh, that one eats the house?
Oh yeah.
Oh
I got another
man.
one. Hang on, where am I?
Very good, Roy. Love it.
Did you ever take the video of the two that went into your house to eat the scraps or something?
Yeah, he comes in still all the time.
Oh, look at that.
Okay, is that hamburger?
Yeah, no, steak, I think.
Oh wow, you really spoil your birds.
Yeah,
They get steak. Wow.
it's trained real well too.
Considering that, guys, that this is a wild bird. Correct?
Yeah, they are. They're not trained.
This is
Just
the
hungry.
quiet kookaburra.
Sorry?
This is the quiet kookaburra.
Why do you think I feed him?
Ah,
He's
They
in
can
the
be
shut
heard
him up.
from miles away.
Wonderful, Roy. So are you happier now with that lens?
I got pretty confused last week, but the other time, but I'm happier now. But I think it is very video centric, that lens, that 28 to 135. And if I was choosing a lens, it would still be the 24 to 120.
Yeah, for sure. For general photography, for sure. Wow. Well
Yeah.
fed, Kookaburras.
Well fed and spoiled and happy.
You should see when there's a row of them.
A row of them.
Half a
You're
dozen or
gonna,
so.
you're gonna have to nail like a trough or something on the edge of your railing and just lay the food in there.
Lots of wildlife here.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
He's
Roy.
gone.
you've gone.
Thank you, Roy. Thank you. I
My
think
pleasure.
we appreciate it for sure.
Excellent.
But so, was there anything in the chat you guys saw that we should pick up on? I don't want to I think, and I apologize, but we had so much material that we went through the last show. We had so much stuff. We went 100 miles an hour, and I just want to make sure that we give you guys due diligence here. Where if you got something interesting you want to talk about, that we bring it up and talk about it before we end the show, because obviously when we're doing the photo review, there's no interaction with you guys really, and it's kind of like the nature of the show. But you guys make the show, you're sending in the pictures, so if there's something that you want to talk about or have any questions on that any of us might be able to answer, and obviously if we can't, we have enough great photographers in here that somebody in the chat should be able to answer pretty much any question that any of us have.
Particularly now that we meet every other week, correct? So it's we got the chance to eat, to get together.
Yeah, we've got 22 people watching and only 18 likes.
So Jeff, as we approach the magical hour, so a reminder of what's coming as you scan there through the you and me are thinking the same way.
You see, that's dangerous. We did a Vulcan mind meld.
So I put the logo of the channel and you read the request.
Yeah, and tomorrow is May the 4th.
So guys, I'm sorry, I had to remember that I had to go to the reminder here. Presentations and topic, correct? This is your show, right? So please do collaborate. As I said, that we got a lot of talented people here, as we see every photo or image review, correct? So Luis has promised to do some additional presentations on I think he did a trip to Taiwan as well recently. So Paul, thank you for sharing all that about your monitoring of your Kestrel. We definitely want to have some follow-up. We already tested some follow-up here, but we have Terry with landscape, and now we saw Bob here with the fantastic photography on black and white, and Robert with his nocturnal landscape and all that. So please do think about putting presentation together. Right? Now, the other thing is, so we will have in 2 weeks' time, we will have another of our general meetings. So let Jeff and I what else, but I will have a presentation, and you will see some of these discussions from me about geology and birds and all that stuff. So it comes with some story. Sorry for that, but that's what I do. So
Gustavo was a spokesperson for the insurance company that said, "Get a piece of the rock," because he's a geologist.
So we have this in 2 weeks, all right? And of course, then prepare for the June image review. Start thinking about that. So that's what I have, Jeff.
Yeah, the only thing I have going on that I gotta do more research on is I'm finally going to be getting back my 1956 to 63. I don't know what year it is. I have to do a serial number search, but it's in that era. The Ihagi Exacta V2A. 35 millimeter camera that was really a top of the line camera made in Germany, and actually it was the first. They called it, I think, the Kino Exacta that came out in 1936 was actually considered to be the first successful production run 35 millimeter camera made. Obviously, Leica had a camera before them, but they weren't really doing large production runs. So this was considered the first 35 millimeter camera that had some quantity in their production runs back in 1936. And the camera really didn't change significantly from 1936 into the 60s. I mean, there were little changes, little tweaks here and there. And it is an extremely complicated mechanical camera. And your odds of getting one that works is slim to none. And when I bought mine, I won it in a bid. I got it for like $135, somewhere around there, 130, 135 bucks. And I bought it because it was in mint cosmetic condition, but the person was honest and said it had some problems. And I was willing to spend that money and invest and find someone who could fix the camera. So the good news was today I got the bill for the camera and I paid it, and I hope to get the camera within the next week, and hopefully I could do a presentation on that camera. But it has a lot of history. It was actually a professional grade camera, and it was used a lot in the scientific community because I think the first one that came out used 127 roll film, and then they came out with a model that was 35 millimeter film. And it has a unique thing where it actually has a built-in film cutter. So if you had I'll just make up, you got a 24 exposure roll and you only take 3 or 4 images on it, but you need to process those 3 or 4 images right away because it's for some scientific research or something, you can actually cut the film inside the camera and then open it up in a dark room and take out those 3 pictures that you took, or you can load it into another cassette, in the dark room, and then get it developed. But all the primary functions on that camera are on the left-hand side of the camera. So if you're a lefty and you go, why don't they make a camera for a left-hand person? Well, your film counter is mechanically reset with a dial. That's on the left-hand side. Your film counter's on the left-hand side. Your film advance is on the left-hand side. Your shutter speed dial is on the left-hand side. And because their logic was, if you're a right-handed shooter, which most people are, they said, we want you to have your right hand free to focus on focusing the lens, not trying to, do too many things at one time. Let your left hand do this stuff and let your right hand do the focusing. And that was their mindset, good, bad, or indifferent. But it's a weird, excuse my language, it's a weird ass camera. Very high quality, but it has a lot of springs in it and gears in it. It's hard to find one that works, and I was just willing to invest the money to get it fixed because I wanted a pristine condition working model. And so when I get that, I'm going to get all the information and put together a story and probably, do a quick video on it or just take a bunch of snapshots, and I'll share that with you because I think, once again, it's a camera with a story, and it was actually considered a professional level camera because it had a flip up viewfinder. You look down on it like a medium format camera, and then they came out with a reflex mirror that you could put it on the top with a viewfinder. and they had interchangeable focusing screen, interchangeable finders, and all this, and microscope adapters and all sorts of stuff long before the Nikon F came out. Now, of course, when the Nikon F came out, it was a totally different caliber of camera. But in terms of like a camera that was a first that considered to have a professional lineup of accessories, it was actually the Exacta line of cameras. So it has a very good story to it. And I look forward to sharing it with everybody. And I don't eat Vegemite. Roy, do you eat Vegemite?
Really.
Rarely.
Only like it on toast with egg on top.
So anyway, Jeff, maybe for the next general meeting in 2 weeks, you have some of that ready.
Maybe, yeah, hopefully.
And some film developed.
Film
So
development. Gotta get film. I gotta get. Yeah, it's hard. It's a hard balancing act.
learn from Bob. Yes. No, that's good. That's good.
But
So
anyway,
please do send us stuff, correct? And we want to make sure that everybody here contribute to the show. Obviously, the image review, but also presentations. So remember, it's the story behind that we're more is what we are interested. Right? Either as
yeah,
a
and
collection-
you could come on. It only has you could do something that's only 5 minutes long.
exactly.
Doesn't have to be a 20-minute talk or a half an hour talk. It could be, man, I found this neat tool that allows me to do this, and I just want to talk about it. I'll tell you where I got it, or I'll tell you how much it costs or whatever, and just share that. Just share that information. So give us 5 minutes of your time and share information.
All right.
But Terry, we'll see. We'll say you take care, and we're going to sign off now. We're going to say our goodbyes, and look forward to seeing you on the third Saturday of the month. And Gustavo and I will be talking and trying to prep for that and see what we can put together for that show, and have our cast of characters here with us to keep us honest and make sure we don't flub our lines too bad.
I try not to cram too much, Jeff. Try, but I think people like that dynamic of all the things that we were doing that day. So anyway, thank you guys, appreciate it, and see you in a couple of weeks.
Take care, everybody. Have a good one. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.